Welcome everyone to the first in our series, ISO 20022, Don't Get Left Behind. Today's episode 1, our point of view on the state of payments for banks and corporates. Thank you for joining, and please put your questions in the comments area. Now I'd like to introduce our speakers. First, we have Isak Pantila. He has a wealth of experience spanning multiple continents and a deep understanding of global payment modernization initiatives. Isak is a leader in the ISO 20022 community. Today, he leads the consulting practice at MoveIt's Payments. We also have Ulf Persson as SVP of Strategic Product Management and Analyst Relations. Ulf is responsible for strategic product management, product marketing, global analyst relations, and leadership with regards to SEEBURGER integration technology, platform, and integration services. Ulf works across multiple industry verticals such as financial services and payments, and he's an expert in ISO 20022. Thank you, gentlemen. Let's get started.
Great. Thank you, Chris, and great to have you back, Isak. I think it was 5-6 months ago we sat together. We were preparing for a webcast, corporate webcast, and obviously since then you've been on events, I've been in events. We have had SEEBURGER, we have SEEBURGER behind us, we have Smarter Faster Payments, NACHA behind us, EBA Day, and many more globally. So, you know, looking back of kind of where we were back then, and also where obviously the payments world is moving. What's your observations lately? What have you seen when you've been participating at the event, and also, you know, day-to-day activities, projects, and so on and so forth?
Yeah, it's been quite an interesting couple of months. I haven't seen you at any of the events, unfortunately, but I've been to a couple of good ones in North America as well as in Europe. I think the conversations in North America and Europe are fairly similar. Payments modernization is a very key topic still being discussed. EU has a little bit more of a regulatory focus, but that's just the nature of the environment over here. Yeah. There were three things that I found interesting, and I'm curious to see your views as well. The three things were amplified this year compared to last year. There was a heavy focus on the value-added services instead of the mandatory infrastructure changes, and I think that's natural where we are right now. The second thing was the partnerships that got announced. There was really interesting partnerships between fintechs and fintechs, but also between banks and fintechs that I thought was really interesting. And then the third topic that were amplified was the heavy focus on the underserved customers, most typically the small and medium-sized entities. So that's kind of what I heard from the EBA days, the Payments Canada Summit, as well as the SEEBURGER conference in September. How about you?
I think it's definitely, I agree. I can also see, you know, also we can see with the projects that we are involved in, obviously, maybe not the larger banks, but some of them globally, but then kind of the next tier are still preparing, and they're looking at modernization of their infrastructure. And obviously, we will get to that point. ISO 20022 fits in there, and with the ability to preferably and hopefully have a better way of managing the data. I've also attended a few fraud and AML, financial crime type activities, and obviously that's an area where this is also being discussed one way or the other. You know, how to utilize data to in a better proactive way capture the bad guys, so to say, as early as possible as part of the process. I attended the Smarter Faster Payments event. It was one of the first of all these big ones this year. This was in May, and it was interesting. We had a session where, you know, with regards to readiness, and obviously readiness is more in general as well, and you have the whole you know, who's ready, how are we ready. Maybe the larger banks have done the testing, so to say, but they may not have had an opportunity to bring their corporates on, and they're still not sure of how will that go on, and what will happen, knowledge, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I definitely agree with you, and It's still there's a lot of things that has happened, but I think there's more things that needs to happen. So yeah, especially on the corporate side. So yeah.
Yeah, I think the most exciting things are yet to come. So that's why I'm excited. And I think it's really good that we're now seeing the shift of focusing on the value-added services and new products, and that's where the corporate comes in as well.
And then there was also, some points that I picked up on around readiness. One of the larger U.S. banks, and I think you may have heard that as well. That the industry, there's only some messaging, so to say, some of the payments that are really utilizing the ISO 20022 standard as such. So is that something that I think some of this was probably mentioned during the Cybers Week, and I've heard from others as well when we look into various initiatives and also talking to our existing clients. So is that something you picked up on as well?
I did. I think the number that I heard at Cybers, if we look at CBPR Plus or Swift implementation specifically, was at 15% of the volume was in ISO 20022. Compared to the legacy MT, which I personally I think is a little bit disappointing. I was hoping it was going to be greater than that, given that the adoption rate at the start of the coexistence in March 23 was about the same. So in the last couple of months since we sat down and had the discussions, we haven't really seen a lot of adoption. And we have an end date. Swift is very firm with November 25, and other market infrastructure are also doing the same. So we only have 2 years until we're gonna see the decommission or some kind of change. And not a lot of time, and we still have 85% of the volumes being in the legacy. So there's still a long way to go, and a lot of banks that needs to change.
No, you're right, and there was something else around on the overall. You may know, and I think we did include some of these findings when we had this corporate webcast that we did in earlier this year. We did a survey with Celent earlier this year, and we will address that later on as part of these 3 webcast series, and I think it's more in episode 2 and 3. But I mean, you have the numbers there, and also the fact that maybe the overall banks being ready is one thing. Maybe some of the larger corporates are also ready, depending on resources and what have you, and that they may have a tighter relationship from a business point of view with some of their banks. But I heard something like maybe just around 6-7% of the overall industry, as if you group them together, so to say. And that's obviously a little bit scary, given not only payments as such, everyone wants to do business faster, but overall, and I'm coming back to the fraud topic and financial crime. So what do you see then specifically, from a other bank and corporate activities, maybe, more payments in general and ISO, a little bit high level? Did you see some input there?
I think I saw a little bit of a sense that this is really just the starting point. 2023, we saw some major milestones with payments modernization and ISO 20022 specifically. We saw obviously Swift coexistence start, many more market infrastructures. We saw FedNow in the US also going live. So there's a number of key milestones. However, I think people are realizing that that's not the end. We're not done. We're not going to have conferences without content in 2024. There's a number of initiatives already on the go, and CPMI released a report just a couple of weeks ago that was really interesting, trying to harmonize ISO 20022 usage if we focus on ISO 20022. So there's still a long way to go, and I think the key thing that you're saying there is ready, and the key thing is to ask, what does that mean? Because ready for one bank means a very different thing than ready for another. And to me, it's always been ready to benefit from the benefits of ISO 20022. I think a lot of the banks and corporates might see it differently and just be ready to send and receive. But if you don't make the actual change and understand what it could mean for you, you're not really going to see that any benefits. And I talked to a bank at Sybos, and their executives were furious because they didn't see any benefits of ISO 20022, and they had done just the bare minimum to be able to be compliant. And now they were surprised that they didn't see any benefits. So I think it depends on how you define the word ready.
It's still and I remember we brought that up earlier this year, and I've seen it is knowledge, and how do you prepare? And okay, it's one thing to put together a small target project team and maybe do the minimum to comply, but then use how do you use information, how do you use data, and make sure of that systems, applications, what have you on both sides of the equation can send and receive and utilize this information in the best way. So I think that's still a challenge and that's probably because many don't have time and there are other day-to-day business going on and so on and so forth. But I think that's something I think it's important, knowledge, what do you need to do and how do you do things, step by step, but also in parallel, correct? So the agile, we have to be agile. So yeah.
Yeah, I do think in terms of the education, I do see a big change in 2023 compared to other years as well. There's a number of there's a lot more people that understand ISO 20022, and there's a lot more education out there, and I also hear from banks and corporates that they're interested in getting more training to fully understand what this means for them. So there is I think we're moving in the right direction, but I think that's another topic that is gonna be important if we look at it from the industry point of view of really reaching the benefits of ISO 20022.
So I mean, we will talk a little bit about this in episode 2 and episode 3, or a little bit more. But migration as such, and if now we're in Q4, moving faster and faster towards holidays, and we all want to appreciate the holidays coming up and the year end and so on and so forth. So what would you say if someone asking, okay, maybe I can start something now. What should you think about? Is it more to get ready and understand knowledge training, or is that a good starting point, or what do you think?
It's difficult to prepare or create plans or anything like that without knowing what you're actually going to do. So education is important to understand what it means for you. Every bank is very different from the other bank, so you need to appreciate that. So for sure, understanding what it means. I don't recommend that you need to do weeks of training, but I think at least at a high level, understanding what ISO 20022 means, and also that it's so much broader than just sending and receiving different language or different messages. It's a lot more than that. So I think just getting a high level understanding of what it means for you as a bank is the first thing, and then from there you can start making the decisions of build versus buy or create some kind of plan. But you do need to understand what it means first, and don't forget, the only thing I always say is don't forget the customers, the end users in this one, because if you look at it as a compliance, then it's going to be cheaper, but you're not going to get hardly any benefits from it. If you do engage kind of that corporate side or end user side of what you can do with the data, what you can do in terms of new products, you're going to get a lot of a whole different story from the project or program. And then the last thing, I think, what people ask me what to do, I often say just talk to people, right? There's a lot of people that go through similar things. You don't have to talk to a consultant. You can talk to your peers, your other banks. You can talk to vendors. You can talk to a lot of people that have knowledge about this one and get an understanding. So that's kind of what I would recommend that they would do. I guess we'll double click in the next session, right?
Totally. No, I think, and it makes sense. I mean, if we want to wrap it up now, it's all about the payment modernization, and which triggers all of these initiatives one way or the other, getting ready for 2024, move things forward. And of course, ISO 20022 is a big one, but there are other compliance as well and regulative initiatives. And these are obviously different, you know, Canada versus US versus Europe, and then in Asia, and so on and so forth. So yes, and you're right. We will address some of this in the next episode, the next 2 episodes. So yeah, by that, well, great. I think this was a great start of this series. Thank you very much, Isak, and I'm looking forward to share more towards our audience together with you. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Please tune in to our next 2 sessions, during which we'll discuss practical solutions for banks and corporates to move forward with their ISO 20022 implementation strategies. Our session geared toward banks will be November 30th, and toward corporates will be December 7th. Until next time, thank you, Isak and Ulf, and thanks to everyone for joining us today. Bye-bye.